Hi, and welcome to Vandy Hack's Apache Spark workshop. My name is Terry, and I'll be giving an introduction to Spark. In a few minutes, my partner Tim will lead us through some real examples with code. So what is Spark? Spark is a data analytics framework that excels in programming over large sets of data with parallelism and fault tolerance. The fault tolerance nature of Spark means that our Spark programs as a whole can keep running even in the case of a problem in a small section. Given that Spark has these two properties, it's perfect for managing copious amounts of data in your projects. So how exactly does Spark handle big data? The key is the RDD, or resilient distributed data set. This is the primary data structure in Spark, and it's useful because operations can be performed on this data set in parallel. We'll see exactly how creating an RDD works, as well as the parallelization in a bit. Once you have an RDD, there are two primary operations. If you want to give your data a new form, you want to use a transformation. On the other hand, if you want to capture a specific piece of data, use an action, which returns a specific singular value. The other important concept when using Spark is laziness. This property of Spark can either speed up or slow down your processes. When a transformation is done in Spark, the resulting RDD is not actually computed due to Spark's laziness. If you want the actual computation to be done, you have to use an action. This prevents Spark from doing more work than necessary. However, this means that transformation results are not being stored. So let's look at this example where we pull lines from a text file and then use this lines.map function, which should return an RDD. But it isn't actually computed until an action requires on the next line with reduce. So if you find yourself using the same transformations over and over again, you need to use the persist function. Let's go over some examples real quick. The following functions, as well as many more, can be found in the documentation online as well. So suppose I have a collection of integers and want to sum them. In this case, I need to use an action since I only want a singular result. One action I could use is reduce. Reduce takes in a function that accepts two values and returns one. In this case, I could pass a function to reduce that simply sums two integers. Behind the scenes, data will be summed in parallel. The important thing to note here is that the function must be commutative and associative. This ensures that no matter what value Spark sums behind the scenes, the final result will be the same. A case where this wouldn't work is if I wanted to pass a function that subtracts one value from the other. Since this function is not commutative, there won't be any consistency in the output. The map transformation is really simple and useful. It simply does the same thing to each piece of data and returns a new RDD. For example, if you wanted to square everything in your dataset, just pass in a function that squares the input to the reduce transformation. And finally, the flat map transformation adds an additional step in that more than one output can be specified. In this example, we created an array of numbers followed by their squares.
Hey everyone, so we're going to be now going over the code for the Big Data Workshop. I'm just using right here Visual Studio Code as my editor because I use it for other things. I like the editor. And it actually has this nice feature where I can kind of run this file in an interactive way as well. So not only is the whole file already run, which is going to increase our processing time a lot, but I can also demo everything that's going on in the file itself. So we're pretty much just going to be walking through the code here, figuring out everything that's going on, and kind of getting a general sense of how to use Spark to conduct big data stuff. So first off, we need the PySpark library itself. If you do not have that already, you can just do pip install PySpark. I already have this, so it's not relevant for me, but if you do not have PySpark, you will need to install with pip. Also for a plot, this might not be necessary for you, but I'm just using matplotlib and I'm using pyplot, so you can pip install those as well. And these are going to be the only two dependencies here besides, just having Python 3 in general. All right, so first off, making a Spark configuration here. This is going to allow us to customize our settings a little bit. So this is just creating the object. Then we're going to set our name to the Big Data Workshop and set master to the local, right? So this actually, as you can see, sets a master URL to connect to. When this is set to local, this means that we're running Spark on our own machine, which is going to be important here because just for this demo, we don't need a cloud version of Spark. We don't need that kind of computing power. And here I just type this, a C variable here is just a Spark context. And so this gets the context if it already exists, and if it does not exist, then it will instantiate that context. And so we're using the configuration we made earlier as our configuration. All right, so first off, we're going to read from a text file called noe.txt. Basically what this is a file, a famous story written, I think in the mid-1900s, basically is an example of constrained writing. And so there are no E's, or supposedly no E's in this text. And what we're going to see is whether or not that claim actually holds up. So I'm just using the first version of the text, the first edition that was published, and we'll see if the author was actually true to his word of putting no E's in the text. And obviously in that day and age, there was no like Control F. You couldn't, you just use a computer to find out any letter that existed in the word. So it's a little bit more of a challenge, but nowadays we have good ways of doing this. So we're going to just open this up as a text file, and that'll give us an RDD, which is a special data type that Spark uses for data like this. So this is just the data type we're going to be using. It's not too important to know what an RDD is here, but that is what we're going to be using in this particular file, in this particular workshop. So once we get that data set, we're calling it no E, and then what we're going to do is actually call a flat map. So right, what that does is just review, flattens, and also maps. So for each line, right, I've got a little lambda here. I'm going to split that line by spaces. So that will actually give me the words. And normally this would give you kind of like an array, a bunch of little arrays of words based on the line. That's why we have flat map. This will just make this one kind of conglomeration of all the words in the text. And if we want to actually see what that looks like, we can do word E. We're going to just call take 10, see kind of what the first 10 words of this are. So yeah, I, then two spaces, if you throughout all history had. So perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. And now we are going to get the characters from the words, kind of using the same general sense of logic. But what we're actually doing is for each word, we are making a list, and that'll give us kind of an array by individual characters. And then each individual character will be flattened into just this one big kind of data set here. So if we try this again, we're just going to have individual characters, I, F, youth, there's a comma, stuff like that. So now we're going to see what the frequency here actually is. I'm just going to copy this line. And all this does is it's counting by value for the data set and seeing how many occurrences of each particular value actually exists. So for this, right, we have the number of E's that we're actually printing out. And so we can see that there are actually 4 E's in this text that supposedly had 0 E's. So this is actually kind of a fun fact. The first edition of this text that was ever published actually had 4 E's. It was a mistake. Yeah, just some quick additional info. The book without the E is actually called Gadsby, not to be confused with The Great Gatsby, of course, a classic novel. It was written in 1939, and there are 4 E's, right, as we previously mentioned. And the first edition is the one with the E's, right, before it was fixed. And these E's are in the words the. There are 3 V's, THE, and 1 officers. So that's how there are 4 E's there. So pretty interesting piece of trivia, and it's pretty cool that we can very quickly see that, there are actually 4 E's here when this novel in 1939 was unable to detect that, and obviously they didn't have a very good way of automatically doing that, before the advent of computers and all this stuff. So pretty neat to see. All right, so next off, we are going to analyze Pinocchio. Right, so this is our Pinocchio file here, pinocchio.txt. We're going to do the same thing we did before, get that as a sample, right? The first 10 lines are going to be this pinocchio.take10. Let me just copy this over. So we can see we got the first 10 lines, and I don't know, the formatting's a little weird, but we got once upon a time, while I'm at a table, blah, 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 Geppetto, all this stuff familiar, hopefully, with Pinocchio, obviously another classic there. So now we're going to actually get a data set with the line lengths, right? So we're going to map all these lines in Pinocchio. So just going to call that S and get the length of S. And then we're actually going to reduce that. And so, right, what reduce does is it kind of has this accumulation that comes in, and it'll eventually just give you one value. And so here, for each pair of A and B, right, where A is kind of our next value and B is everything to that point, we're just going to take A plus B. So hopefully here, we're going to get all the sums of the lengths of the lines. It seems that we do. Obviously not a great way to verify this, but yeah, apparently if you get all of the line lengths in Pinocchio, it's about 19,000 words long there. So now we're going to get all these words into words, same thing we kind of did earlier with the flat map, and actually find the word with the greatest length here. So we can see kind of the same logic we used earlier, right? We already used reduce. And what we're doing is we're starting off and we're saying, okay, we have two words, you know, whatever the previous word, greatest word to that point was, and the current word. And if the length of the current word is actually greater than whatever our previous max was, we're going to now make our max that, you know, first word that is larger. And if it is not greater, then we're just going to keep the same max that we had before. So puppet master, then a comma, is actually the longest word in Pinocchio. Not as surprising, it's pretty long. I don't know how many characters is exactly, like 12 or 13. So, right, and here we have a very easy way of getting all the distinct words. So kind of just another cool function that you can use, perform some quick processing. And so out of these, right, we've got all the unique words. We can just do is, you know, get like the first 10 of those. Oh, whoops, not first, take. So yeah, we got a couple of unique words. Once upon a time, carpenter, picked up, strange, probably boy or something. I don't exactly know what the next unique word would be, but you can get an idea of how that works. Now we're going to get all the words that start with S. We're going to use another function here. Pretty helpful as well. All these, in my opinion, very, very helpful, not even in just, you know, this kind of stuff, but just to have in kind of your back pocket. So filter is going to take, you know, look at each word and process it based on the condition that we pass it. So if that word starts with an S, it's going to keep it. If not, it's going to get discarded, and it's going to form a new data set out of this. So do this, and now we can just get the first 10 again. Yeah, and all these words start with S, right? Just as we expected. All right, so now we're going to get kind of a count of all the, you know, words and all the letters in Pinocchio here, kind of doing the same thing that we did earlier. We're making a list out of all the words. That's going to give us an array with all the letters. Then using a flat map to convert all of those arrays into one and just have that, you know, one letter followed by another letter followed by another for every letter in the text. And so our total characters in Pinocchio, we can see, is going to be the count. Let's see what that is. So apparently Pinocchio is 227,000 characters long. And then the frequency of that is just going to be, you know, kind of hard to tell. But, right, we have, in this case, actually, we're doing Pinocchio, which is just the whole RDD. So we can see that each line shows up one time, which is pretty interesting, right? But if we were to now modify this to have total or sharp note, right, then we can see the individual characters. So let's see that. And then I'll just print this out. All right, so we've got, you know, couple of capital I's, makes sense. Bunch of O's, right? Expected. Bunch of T's, bunch of R's. You know, sure, there's going to be a bunch of E's as well, right? Wherever that is. There's actually only 4 E's. Interesting. Probably something to do with the typesetting. But yeah. so now what we're going to do is kind of perform a sort of frequency analysis just on a bunch of text in general. In the books folder, I've collected a bunch of texts, classical texts. I want to say there's some Dickens in there. There's like Moby Dick as well. And so I'm going to parse all of those into one big file using this command, right? I've got my books directory and then a slash and then a asterisk here, right? And if you're not super familiar, asterisk in regular expressions is kind of like a wildcard character. So any set of characters can go in there. So what this means in the grand scheme of things is it's going to do books, slash, and then anything as long as it ends in .txt, right? So anything that ends in .txt in that books directory is going to be part of this data set. We're going to do the same thing we did earlier. Take all these words, split them up, get just a bunch of words. Now I want to convert them all to uppercase because I just want to, get all the characters without paying attention to the frequency or paying attention to whether or not they're lower or uppercase because that's going to mess with our frequency. And then, we see earlier here, right? For example, here we have a star. There's a, question marks, stuff like that. I don't actually care about those here. So I'm going to filter out everything that isn't between A and Z, right? So for each char, it's got to be between A and Z inclusive here. Then I'm going to count all of these by value, sort them out. Just get a sorted list that'll make our histogram look a little bit better. And then I'm going to create an X and a Y from these, from this dictionary, so I can actually plot them relative to each other. If you're not familiar with zip, it's kind of a built-in Python function that gives you like tuples, pairs of tuples. So this will give me kind of all of the X's as the first part and all of the Y's as the second part. And so I can actually plot that quite well. So let's run this plot here. So we can see, right, we've got our plot. How good did we actually do? Well, obviously there's a lot of A's, right? A lot of T's and a ton of E's. And if you know anything about the English frequency, this is pretty much expected, right? E is by far the most common letter. Then you got your A's, you got your T's, you got your S's, R's, O's. Those are all quite common. So I'm just going to compare that to one that I've downloaded off the internet, and we can kind of see how well we did. So it actually looks, very, very good, right? So if we just look at each individual bar, it's kind of like almost verbatim, right? It's pretty much like I copied this, which I promise I did not. This is a legitimate plot that I manufactured, but it goes to show like how powerful this stuff is, just by coming up with a couple popular texts. I can pretty much get almost a verbatim estimate of the actual letters in the English language, and this can be useful for a bunch of reasons. If you're messing around with some ciphers, some kind of code breaking stuff, and you have basically a cipher that switches letters around, then you can kind of use frequency analysis to actually figure out what the original word was there. So pretty interesting, and this is kind of overall just designed to get your feet wet with using Spark and using some of these functions, particularly the functional constructs, to manipulate your data set, get the information out of there that you actually need, plot that if you want, just kind of have it as a whole, get counts, see the first 10 lines of something, stuff like that. So hope you all enjoyed, and thanks for coming.